It's a Tuesday morning in 1954, in a small kitchen in Ohio, and the sun is just coming through a gingham curtain over the sink. A woman named Dorothy is standing at the counter. She's 24 years old. Her apron is tied twice around her waist. Her hair is pinned back from last Friday's set. On the counter sits a bowl of white vinegar, a folded stack of yesterday's newspaper, and a small tin of baking soda with a dent in the lid from years of use. She didn't buy any of it at a store that morning. She already had it. Everything she needed to make her house shine was already sitting in her cupboard, the way it had been for her mother, and her mother before that. She wets a rag, dips it in the vinegar, and starts on the front window. No paper towels. No spray bottle with a brand name on it. Just her hands, her time, and a method passed down so quietly that nobody ever wrote it in a book, because everybody already knew it. This is a countdown of 10 of those forgotten methods. Real ones. The ones that outlasted the products built to replace them. We're going to start with the small ones, the ones for windows and floors, and we're going to end on the one that wasn't really about cleaning at all. Stay with me, because the last one is the one that still gets used today by people who don't even know where it came from. Let's begin. Number 10. Newspaper for the windows. Every housewife in 1954 knew that a cloth left streaks. So did paper towels when they finally came along. But crumpled newspaper, dipped in a little vinegar and water, buffed the glass dry without a single mark. Old newspapers were used to buff clean surfaces and washed windows. They soaked up spills and served a dozen other purposes around the house. It cost nothing. It was already in the bin from the night before, and it worked better than almost anything you could buy. Number 9. Vinegar in the mop water. Most homes in the 1950s didn't have wall-to-wall carpet the way we picture now. There was loads of linoleum, mopped with vinegar water, wiped down again and again until it held a shine you could almost see your reflection in. No harsh chemical smell filling the house, just a splash of vinegar in a bucket of warm water and a floor that looked cared for because it was. Number 8. Salt on a fresh spill. This one still works, and almost nobody remembers where it came from. The moment something spilled on the stove, or a drop of sauce hit the tablecloth, out came the salt shaker. Spills happen, so when they occur around the stove or contain grease, you pour salt on top of the spill, and it reduces the mess. On fabric, the logic was the same. Pour a generous amount of salt right on top of a sauce spill, and the salt starts absorbing the liquid immediately, pulling it out of the fibers before it has a chance to set. Let it sit. Brush it away. Half your problem is already gone. Number 7. Bread for the walls. This is the one that stops people cold when they hear it. Fingerprints on the wallpaper, smudges by the light switch, soot near the stove. The fix wasn't a sponge. It was a slice of plain white bread. The soft interior could lift fingerprints from walls and wallpaper without leaving water stains, rolled into a ball, and pressed gently against the smudge. No water meant no warping. No chemical meant no smell. Just bread, doing a job nobody sells bread to do anymore. Number 6. Cold tea for the wood. This is where it starts to feel less like a chore list and more like something tender. A housewife in 1954 didn't throw out yesterday's tea. She let it cool, dipped a soft cloth into it, wrung it out, and wiped down the varnished dresser, the piano, the wooden floor by the back door. Vinegar or cold tea brought a shine to the wood, and the tea was best left to sit for a few days before use. The tannins cleaned and darkened the wood at the same time, so the furniture her grandmother left her looked richer with every year, not more tired. We're halfway down, and something is starting to come into focus. These weren't tricks born from nothing. They were born from a war that had only just ended, from ration books and empty shelves, from a generation of women who learned that nothing in the house was garbage until you'd tried every last use for it first. The 1950s housewife was known for her thriftiness, still carrying habits from home life in World War II, the make-do and mend mentality that gave birth to so many of these hints. What comes next isn't just cleaning. It's the proof of that whole way of living. Number 5. Baking soda and vinegar together. Every housewife knew the sound before she knew the chemistry. Mist the item with vinegar, sprinkle on baking soda, mist again, and you'd hear and see a fizz. Let it sit a minimum of 30 minutes, sometimes overnight, then scrub with a stiff brush and plenty of elbow grease. It worked on the toilet, the sink, the stove grates, the pots so scorched you thought you'd have to throw them out. It was loud, and a little bit magic, and it meant war on grime without a single store-bought can. Number 4. Borax, left to sit overnight. Some tricks were slower, quieter, done at night while the house was already asleep. Borax sprinkled into the toilet bowl, a layer of vinegar over the top, left untouched until morning. By breakfast, the ring that had built up all week was gone with barely a scrub. It's a version of the same trick modern cleaning bloggers still swear by after learning it from their own mothers and grandmothers' decades-old routines, and it hasn't gotten any less effective in 70 years. Number 3. Flour, salt, and a little water for the silver. This is the one that feels like a small ceremony. The wedding silver, tarnished dark after months in the drawer. No expensive polish. Just equal parts flour and salt mixed with water into a paste, rubbed onto the silver, left to sit about an hour, then rinsed with warm water, mild abrasives that gently scrub away tarnish without scratching. Dorothy would have done this before a holiday, humming at the sink, watching her grandmother's spoons come back to life under her own hands. Number 2. Vinegar in the dish rinse. This one hid in plain sight, in almost every kitchen in the country, and nobody thought to write it down because it was simply what you did. Once a week, a splash of vinegar went into the second rinse of the dishwater. Adding half a cup of vinegar to the second rinse added luster to glass and china, and even helped sweeten the dishwater itself. The glasses came out of the cupboard the next morning, catching the light a little differently, and she never once had to explain why. And that brings us to number 1. And the strange thing about number 1 is that it was never really a cleaning trick at all. Starting at the top and carrying one basket. Every one of these tricks, the vinegar, the bread, the salt, the tea, worked because of something underneath all of them. A housewife in the 1950s cleaned from the ceiling down to the floor, dusting the high shelves before she ever touched the baseboards, because dust falls, and there was no sense doing a job twice. She started at the top and worked her way down, so that as she dusted top cabinets, the dust that got knocked to the bottom would still be waiting to be cleaned last, not first. And she carried one basket from room to room, gathering whatever was out of place as she went, so she was never walking back and forth for something she'd forgotten. She gathered a basket for tidying, picking up items that weren't where they belonged as she moved through the rooms, redistributing them where they should be as she entered the next one. It sounds so small, but it wasn't really about the basket or the order of the rooms. It was about a woman who had almost nothing to spend, and so she made sure nothing was wasted. Not a slice of bread, not a pot of yesterday's tea, not a single trip up the stairs. Every method on this list came from the same place, a kind of quiet, stubborn pride in doing more with less, and doing it so well that nobody watching would ever guess how little she'd spent to get there. Dorothy finished her windows that Tuesday morning and stood back to look at the light coming through them, clean enough that you'd forget the glass was even there. She didn't take a picture of it. Nobody was going to see it but her family, and maybe a neighbor who dropped by for coffee. But she knew. She knew exactly what she'd done with a little vinegar, a little newspaper, and a lot of care nobody had asked her for. If this brought back a memory, a mother's hands wringing out a tea-stained rag, the smell of vinegar drying on a windowsill, a basket carried room to room on a Saturday morning. Hit subscribe. There's more forgotten, honest history like this waiting for you, and the next story is ready when you are.